You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And give me 1 second here because I'm about to get ready to say hello and welcome once again. It's that time for us to do another edition of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. I'm your host, Joe D. McPhee here. And only thing I got to say up to this point, being back, a week out of C2E2, a part of me feels like, while another part of me feels like
emotional damage.
And I'm going to explain exactly why those two things here in a moment here. So let's get started by getting a lot of the business end of things out the way here. Like always, we always have to state that Stupid O'Clock happens 1 hour into our show here, which is, if we go into our second hour, you could go over to Stupid O'Clock. Then that is followed up by Last Man Standing. Then you get your respite until Monday morning till you have Nicholas Talkford and Nevermind the Furthermore on Monday. And Comic Book Spectrum will be back on this Thursday, and we're going to have the full group there. We're going to have Cliff, Elaine, and myself here. And you never know when one of the originals here would pop up online with us as well here. So with that in mind, we want to go right into the next bit of business here, which is new comic book pickups for the week here. And yes, we do have some new books here. We are a week out of C2E2, and we still got new books that are still coming in, and the last bit of stuff that we got on that Sunday here. So we're going to start off with a second copy of Honey West here. This is a better copy of it because remember the other one, we had a big little chip out of here. This one does have some spine dings on it, but it's a lot better than the one that we originally got here. And I believe that this is Red Sonja issue number 2. I forgot which volume this is from here, but this is Red Sonja volume 2 here. This is a 1 in 15. Which is pretty nice here. Try to get the glare out of it. Boom, there we go. We also got Squirrel Girl 39. This is from volume 2, I believe. Volume 2, Squirrel Girl 39. And this one, I actually forgot what this was here, but this is a nice little pickup from C2E2. This was like a $25 cover here with Zatanna and Diana here, which is pretty nice. And then we got X-Men number 2 from volume 4, which is nice. So that tells me that I completed volume 4. And then we got a good and not so good copy of Mr. Miracle 19. So I was able to get my Mr. Miracle number 19. So that's the not so good copy. And this is the copy that was gifted to me by one of the viewers out there, just like you. This was sent to me and gifted to me here. So that was a nice little gift. And I do thank you guys for it here. Then we got Spider-Woman volume. I believe this is Spider-Woman volume 7. So Spider-Woman volume 7, number 19 and number 20. And then we got some more recent X-Men, as in X-Men number 2, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 18, and 20. So that was all the new books that we got this week here, which is pretty nice and good. These will be going to storage here probably on tomorrow or next week. Probably tomorrow more so than anything else here. So that brings us to our collector's update here. So there's good news, bad news, and some bittersweet news. So when we do our collector's update, we're going to start off by saying, nope, we couldn't find anything FinForce related as of right now. But as of right now, it is truly official here. We have all volumes of Mr. Miracle, Source of Freedom, and the Seven Soldier Stories, Mr. Miracle. And that's going to bring us to Spider-Woman. And yes, now we got everything from Volume 1 all the way through Volume 8. And that's going to bring us to our Uncanny X-Men update here. So now we got everything from issue number 1 back into 1963 through all the way through Volume 4, minus some of the annuals here. We're only missing issues 20 and 22 from Volume 5. And then from Volume 6, we missing issues 2 through 10, 12 through 14, and 22 to whatever is current here. I don't think we had reached issue 30 yet, but I think that was what CLZ was telling me that was the most recent issue here. Wonder Woman, we could have started the process to knock the number down a little bit more from C2E2, but I'm not paying C2E2 prices for those older books here. So that's the reason why we haven't seen that number. The numbers changing for this one here. However, for the Uncanny X, for the regular X-Men series, from the Jim Lee 1991 series to now, we now officially have from that issue number 1 all the way to the end of issue 4, not including all the annuals. From Volume 5, we are missing issue 3, 10, 12, 16, 19, and 21 through 35. And from Volume 6, which is the most recent series, which is issue 1, 4, 6, 15, 9, 17, 19, and 20, 21 through 24. So we're getting there. We're getting there to have the major collections taken care of as of right now. So it's safe to say that there's not going to be any more Mr. Miracle updates or Spider-Woman updates. I don't know which is the next going to be the next series that's going to replace those two here. But like I said before, I am having a hard time finding, recent issues of Film Force and a couple other things here. So that brings us to production updates and everything. We got back. I started back to working on the role-playing game, which is good. We got a couple of descriptions and stuff to finish on that before we could get that edited. We figured out what was going wrong with the foiled version of issue number 5 for primetime Saturday night, and what actually happened with the A cover for Legends of the Giant Slayer. Both of those have been taken care of. The printer is taking care of that, and I'm just waiting for the final proofs to come in, and then that way, from this point forward, we got clean copies of everything. So those who want to keep their error copies, they can. But the thing about it is that we're going to have nice, good copies of everything here. We don't have to worry about Legends of the Giant Slayer issue number 2. That's already done. It's just a matter of getting it over to Elaine when we need to get that done. So that frees me up to either finish Primetime Saturday Night number 6 or Amazonian number 8 here. In addition to that, like I said, we got the role-playing game that we're looking into. So with that in mind, we're going to deal with the first half of the main topic here, which is the C2E2 recap here. As far as sales-wise was concerned, it was a very good year for us here. We did make better than what we did last year. Last year was a disaster. Last year, I have to admit, it was a disaster. Whenever you don't make, it's like any money that you make is a bonus. And I'm not going to sit here and complain and be like, oh, complain and this, that, and the other. But usually for that show, we do okay. We don't get into the thousands of dollars, but we do okay. This year we did very, very well. I wish that we have continued success, but the continued success here is because of a lot of things that went on behind the scenes here. Like, for one, we were a part of a scavenger hunt. So that means that people had to come and seek us out. We was able to have undivided attention on our products and was able to shoot our shot and actually pitch and sell the way that we need to pitch and sell here. The second thing that worked out for us here is that we did get the word out about where we're at on the showroom floor. Even though we're still we was up in the front, we actually had people seeking us out and stopping there first before they go out to Artist Alley and all the small press booths and everything to that magnitude here. So with that in mind, being able to sell slabs this year, which was great. We actually had people that actually picked up slabs or our books. That was that made my heart breathe a sigh of relief, because that tells me that people are liking what we do and liking it enough where they're picking up the one-of-one type stuff that we're doing behind the scenes here, all of the different signature series sketch covers and stuff to that magnitude. So that is a great sign here. More things that is happening here. We teamed back up with Greg Horn here. Was able to give him several copies of AWF number 3. Now, why AWF number 3? Because he did the cover for that. So pretty much, if you follow him and follow his Whatnot shows, you might be able to get signed copies from him, both CGC and non-CGC related here. And if you like the artwork and everything, come back and check with us here, because we still got to do AWF number 5, which is also another cover that he did for us. We just haven't released it as of yet. And then on top of that, having people look at our wares and really coming back and supporting not only myself but also Elaine, who also has her In the Coming of Night graphic novel that's out there, plus The Enslaved, and people were picking up copies of those two things as well. It was a great feeling to have those type of things. And then I was able to convince Elaine to do a Storm number 1 sketch cover for the very first time. So I'm going to be on the prowl pushing people to say, to go out to her social medias and take a look at that cover. If you like it, go ahead and buy it from her. Because again, she up here is like, nobody's going to do that. It's like, look, somebody bought the sketch card of that exact same graphic that you did. Right. Put it on a Storm number 1. I bet you somebody will like it and buy it from you. And she did. So I'm going to be, that cheerleader, be like, go Elaine, go when it comes to that as a whole here. So next year, I already started the process for next year. We're not going to be in the front anymore. And the reason why I'm planning to give up my premiere booth space is that we're not around like product anymore. It is bad to where we're at now, where because there's no other like products or comics that's like us around. When you read around things like, hairpins and purses and Pokemon cards and chocolate and fudge, nobody's going to stop to be like, oh, here's a comic publisher right here. They're going to see, oh, Pokemon cards, oh, fudge, oh, hairpins, and they're going to walk right past us. However, when you're around, small press booth or artist alley, people are going to stop to look at the artwork, to look at what you really do, to look at the books and everything, and take their time. So this is one of the things that I always feel about some of the more major, but yet non-participatory shows from larger and mid-major publishers. I feel that it's a bad thing because usually, the bigger companies used to have big booths at shows like C2E2 and all of these other places, but now they're pretty much only relegated to the biggest and best shows here. So like, a San Diego Comic-Con, you might have a Marvel and DC presence there, or at a New York Comic-Con, you might have them there. C2E2 was like number 4 or 5 on that list, and they're not there anymore. We barely have Boom there. Image is not there. There's no major, mid-major, or very upper echelon in publishers that's there anymore. So being in the premier space where they used to be makes no sense to us, because people are not looking for comics in that spot anymore. So we're going to try to move further back to see if we could be more towards other comic book publishers and artists and writers and creators. So we're looking at that aspect here. We're still going to do the 10 by 10. We still have to do the 10 by 10 because we just got too much stuff to do, like an artist alley, and then we don't have to worry about the competition of artist alley here because you only got so many spots. You got so many spots, a whole bunch of artists competing for them. Might as well just stick with the 10 by 10 and everything. What does that eventually mean for us? Our booths and stuff will be a little bit less because we're not up towards the front here. And when I say a little bit less, we're almost looking at almost close to like anywhere between $750 to $1,000 less. So it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to think about and a lot to take into consideration and everything in this upcoming year, and just putting the money aside and getting things done. And like I said, for me, it's more like it's a heavy heart because of the simple fact that I started C2E2 in this area. I have established, and like I said, because I established a presence with Marvel and DC and everybody else there, unless you are a local, you would never know. You would never know that I was truly there in the middle of everything here. So now, since things have evolved and we're around a lot of more of the pop culture type gizmos and gadgets and other celebrated things, it would be to our best interest to yield that spot to somebody that needs to be around that type of product and be able to sell, where we can move back to where we need to be around other like products where people are seeking out comics. Which brings us to the second part of the recap here, which is the part that saddens me the most here. The part that saddens me the most is that because of the vastness of C2E2, there was not a lot of comic book vendors there. And when I say comic book vendors, I talk about actual brick and mortar stores selling comic books. And those that were there, they really didn't bring that much of a selection of books. What they brought was a lot of the FOMO-ish type books, or the older books that, or the older books that people really want to have as their grails. So one of the things that I brought up here that I eventually got at C2E2 was like the first, excuse me, the first printing of Mr. Miracle #1 from the Tom King run, because that first printing was hard to come by. Short print run. It was a short print run. Then the second and third, and the director's cut was, I think, had a higher print run than that first printing. So I was able to finally get one here, but I saw a lot of Hulk 181s. I saw all of these bigger books that were there at big price tag labels here. But what I didn't see this year was the $1 boxes, the $2 boxes, the $3 boxes. They were few and far between here. There was one vendor that was way back in the back that had $2 boxes. I was able to raid them on the last day here. I believe Torpedo Comics was there. They had like each book, in their bins, they had each book was like $3, was $3 unless you get 7, and then it was like for 20. So if you get like, it's like $3 a comic or 7 for 20. And then I forgot what the other one, vendor was. I believe he was connected to Harley Yee. And they had boxes of comics, and each one of their comics was like $5 a book, up unless otherwise marked. So, the days of $1 bins and 50-cent bins, it seems like they're gone away. The thing that could have made vendors money are gone. Now, I do get if we got vendors that's coming from states away, you don't want to bring that many books, and I get it. So I understand people like Metropolis Comics and Harley Yee and some of these other bigger ones that were there. I could understand that they want to focus on owning the older stuff, but there wasn't really many local places that was there. And when I say local, I'm not talking about just in like the Chicagoland area. I'm talking about, within like the North Midwest. So we're talking about Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan. Not many vendors at all. And the depressing thing was there was not a lot of modern books there. So I was going around looking for, like, I want something that was more recent, some of the more recent stuff that came out, and I couldn't find it. I had somebody give me a list of things that they was looking for, and a lot of it was independent type stuff, but it was also more modern. And when I say more modern, it's like within like the last 15 years. Going around from vendor to vendor to vendor. No, we didn't carry that. No, we didn't bring that with us. Oh, and there was another vendor that really kind of like grind my gears, because they had all of this Marvel stuff and all of this independent stuff. So I went there for a lot of the independent stuff. I was like, no, we didn't bring that type of stuff. We want to carry the more popular stuff. And up here, it's like, it grind my gears, because all this Marvel, all the independents, like, well, where's your DC? Oh, we don't carry too many DC books. We don't care about DC. I was like, wow. And I was like, that would be a hard sell for me to have a pull list at that store. Not to say that I'm a big DC fan, but I get a little bit of everything. And if I can't go, back issue diving at your store because you don't really carry DC, then that's a problem. But it's weird going into a show like this, and it's focusing in more on the big boy books or the Grail books, especially modern Grails or silver, bronze, and golden age Grails. There's no in between. It's like, normally it's like you have places that will give you like that starter pack type deal. And when I say the starter pack, it's like they got, the $3 books, $2 books, and $1 books, where you can start getting into the collecting habit, and you can start picking up missing issues, or you could browse through them and be like, oh, I heard good things about this title, and pick up this issue. It's not going to cost me too much. It was very dismaying, because it's like, with the handful of vendors that they had there, and when I say handful of comic book vendors, I mean literal brick and mortar stores. Now, they had people there that may have like graphic novels and stuff to that matter. It's like, yeah, that's okay. But we're talking about single issue comic book vendors. few and far between. It was very few and far between. It's like most of the vendors that was there was either toy vendors, pop vendors, and everybody else was like, if you're not looking for old school or high end or what was considered a Grail like book, you're kind of out of luck here. I was just so happened to be lucky at C2E2 that I was able to pick up a Mr. Miracle 19, because Mr. Miracle 19 is not a Grail book. And if it wasn't for the one store back in the back that I knew that had $2 books, I wouldn't even be able to pick up all the missing books for like volume 8 of like Wonder Woman, or a lot of the stuff missing X-Men stuff that I was up here been searching for the longest, because I haven't been going back and forth to like brick and mortar stores in a long time. So it's like it was disheartening. It was very disheartening, because when I think about old school Comic Cons, one of the things that you're kind of hoping to pick up is maybe a comic book or two, whether it be from your favorite artist, your favorite writer, or from the publisher that you like the most here. There was ways to always get something that was on the newer end of the spectrum. And then if you was missing issues, like recent issues, there was always somebody there that had recent issues that would have been in like, you know, $1 box, $2 box, or $3 box, or a $5 box. Not too many people had that. Everybody had books and they wanted skyrocketing money here. And what do I blame for that? I believe it's like I shouldn't blame, but I feel that the way that the secondary market is today, it's kind of ruining people getting into comic book collecting today. This hobby is no longer a simple and cheap hobby to get into. This is becoming like one of those more expensive type things. It's like it's more of a luxury hobby than anything now. It's not something that it's like that you could pick up and go anymore. And that's kind of saddening, because you know, you never know. It's like with $1 and $2 boxes, you know, like you go through them, you're like, this looks interesting. I might put that, I'll put that in my pile just to check it out here. Since there was none of that here, I'm not going to go and spend $15 at an artist alley table for a title that I don't really know if I'm going to like it or not, unless I know that artist, and I know that artist very well, or know that writer very well, or love all his stuff up until that point to give it a true try. And you might end up finding a brand new favorite if the price was right, if the price was right to get you into it. It's like, for example, it's like I'm trying to think what the last book that I got that was like at like $1 box that I just immediately just started chomping at the bit to get to it. It's been a moment here, because dollar bin diving is it's a luxury to me. It's a luxury, not a necessity. But then again, I'm the person that's going out here to Hip Comics for their 49-cent auctions now, because I'm picking up books there and hoping to find like some new stuff that I could pick up. And at 49 cents, it's like, I'm not going to complain about that, even though the shipping and stuff is exorbitant. But 49 cents a book, if I'm paying, on average anywhere between, $2 and $5. And sometimes I get those books for 49. Sometimes I get them for $1. Sometimes I get them for $2. Sometimes I get them for $3. But if I stay around there, it's like I'm picking up books that I normally would not give a second thought to if I had to pick them up for full price here. And with the way that the economy and stuff is, it's like it's getting harder and harder to say that comic books is a luxury. You know, to me, it's more along the lines. It's like when, you know, comic books is almost getting to the point. Well, it's not getting to the point where it's matching movie ticket prices, because movie ticket prices is over $20 now. So, but for those who are really like in the high end collecting that have to have those incentive variant covers and everything, yeah. If I had to choose between an incentive cover for like $25 or going to the movies here, maybe it'd be better to just to go to the movies here. You know, the movies might be more of an experience than, you know, a poorly written, you know, 16 to 24 page comic book, if you get that much content. But saying all that to say here is that it's just kind of sad that a lot of those vendors are gone away. And I was seeing, you know, a lot more of vendors dealing with keychains, purses, you know, I won't say accessories, but apparel, acrylics, you know, statues, rosin statues. And it's a good thing that there's more product like that out there, toys and all this other stuff. It's good, but at the cost of having less and less comic book vendors there, that's a problem. And then I also have to take a look at booth prices have been skyrocketing as a whole too. And, you know, that's, you know, me being where I'm at and being the fact that I have been doing premiere space for close to like 15 years. I look at in certain vendor spaces, they're getting, you know, 20 by 20s, 40 by 40s, or bigger to show their wares. And that's a pretty penny. So they got to make their money to kind of break even, because the overhead and what they got to do to pack up the books, unload the books, set up everything, set up their areas and everything. And pretty much from day one until it's over with, it's like sell to kind of break even for the space, and then some, or, you know, consider the space as a loss and just try to make what you can. It's just I get it's the equitability of, if you brought the wrong stuff, is it worth taking the stuff home? And that was one of the things that, you know, made last day of the show so interesting back in the days, back in like the 90s. Well, I should say it this way: when I was back on the other side of the table, when I was the guy that's coming up to the artist and everything, and not the one producing the books here. When I was on that side of the table, that was one of the most awesome things ever, to get that to that last day of the show, and it had the vendor be like, "Look, I don't want to take all this stuff home, this, that, the other. Make me a deal," and you could barter out a good deal where you could get, like, you know, several short boxes or a long box of comics for anywhere between, you know, $200 to $300. Those days are gone, because those vendors are no longer there. They're not bringing that type of inventory anymore. And it's sad. It is very, very, very sad. And, you know, this was like the first year that I came to that realization when I started looking for books for other people. And I thought, it was like, oh, you know, these are recent books. It shouldn't be that hard. It was like needle in a haystack. If they was looking for older books or Grail type books, I'd be like, oh yeah, they got that. This is how much it costs. This, yada, yada, yada. But I just don't know what to make of this modern age of collecting right now. To me, it's kind of like Bizarro Land. And shout outs to Bizarro World and DC Comics, because it just feels that way. It feels as much as nobody really collecting the more recent stuff, and the recent stuff is not being celebrated at these shows, unlike the Grail books. And a lot of my Grail books were like is like out of my price range for a show like that, especially if I'm exhibiting there. I don't have the discretionary $200 and $300 and $400 for one issue. That $200 better get me at least somewhere about 50 to 100 books. I just can't do it. It's like I have to have like a very, very good con, or I have to have that money set aside before going into that show. And it's really messed up here. It just really feels messed up on that aspect as far as the lack of comic book vendors, true comic book vendors, and the inventory that they bring now. And I get it from their point of view. They want to make the biggest bang for their buck. They really do. And we got a comment. It's like she said, sorry to, oh, no, that's no big deal. No big deal here, Elaine. I made mention about how he did well with In the Coming of Night and The Enslaved while we were there here. But, you know, you heard some of the comments that I was telling some of the other people dealing with the lack of comic book vendors and the fact that there was no recent stuff that they were selling. A lot of the recent stuff was not there, and then there was no real vendors out there selling, selling $1 and $2 bin boxes all that much. Something that was a staple in like the 1990s and the early 2000s in this day and age does not exist. It just doesn't. Now, why? I just don't know. But at the same time, I also look at the secondary market, and it's like a lot of these brand new books that's coming out. It's like issue number 1 of Dork should not be $50 on the day of release. Speculation and FOMO has made this secondary market blow up books before its time. And it just doesn't make any sense. And then you go to a comic book show like a C2E2, and you go around and try to look for a Dork number 1 first printing. They're going to look at you funny and say, we don't carry it. We don't have it. We're not carrying it. It's a recent book. It's kind of sought after at this point. It's a hot book. They had a few people that had Absolute Batman 1, and someone even had it graded. But also at the same time, it was few and far between to have one too. But the ones that did, they had it because it was a hot book, and in some people's eyes, it was considered a grail. And it's just one of those things that just did not sit right with me here. Not by any means here. Does that speak bad about C2E2 as a whole? No, it doesn't. But what it does speak volumes about is about what is actually happening with bigger comic book related shows. Is it really, it is shows like New York Comic Con, C2E2, San Diego. What was the other one? San Diego. What was the other one in Anaheim? WonderCon. I forgot what the other one in Toronto. Are all the major ones becoming more and more pop culture than true comic book entities here? And which one of these smaller shows are true comic book collecting shows that are very welcoming to smaller publishers? That's the other question that I have here. And Lane is saying it's sad to see the decline in actual comic book publishers at the show. And I talked about that earlier. The decline is really because of a lot of things within the market here. It's not behooving for them business-wise to be at these shows with a major display booth and everything, and giving away free comics when the buying market as of right now is not fully invested anymore like it was back in like the early 2000s and the 90s. That's like when I think about Wizard World in the 90s, when Marvel and DC was there, you could get recent issues of their books for free. They spread them out for you to go by their booth and pick one up. No problems. You know, their overstock was used for these shows in that aspect here. Those days are gone. And even you saw, it's like we barely had Boom Studios, you know, there. And what Boom Studios were focused on was only the higher end titles that people were collecting here. And they were just selling pretty much all of the incentives, like the 1 in 25, the 1 in 50s, and 1 in 100s at the booths here. But they did not have any free books or free samplers like they would have had back in like in the late 80s, early 90s. Those days are gone and over with. So that would mean like all of the smaller press publishers and those who are on the lower end of the mid majors would be back in like small press land or in Artist Alley or closer to that Artist Alley aspect here. Or they might get lucky by getting into Artist Alley or in the writer's block. But if you get into the Artist Alley or writer's block, you only get in an 8-foot table, which means that you're going to be very, very, very limited as far as what type of inventory that you could bring in. You can't bring in everything. 8-foot table space does not give you a lot of room to show a lot of stuff here. And to give you an idea, Elaine, about how much stuff you could get on an 8-foot table, think about my side of our 10 by 10. I filled up 3 racks of books, 3 display racks of books. So let's just say if you and I share like had to share an Artist Alley table, I could have 3 racks of books. I could barely have 1. Because we have to have enough space for you to show your wares and me to show my wares and hope that people would like what I bring as opposed to being able to show the full catalog at one time and try to sell them on the full catalog. This is one of the reasons why I try to stick with the 10 by 10. Because as if C2C Studios was keep growing, our catalog of books kept growing and growing and growing. You know, we started off with Amazonia. Eventually we had AWF. AWF and Amazonia kept, you know, the issue count going until we was forced to do primetime Saturday night. Then we had those three titles and we kept building. And now we're with those 3 books and now Legends of the Giantess Slayer. And say we had, you know, we had separate tables provided that we could actually get in. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. Not everybody has the luxury of getting into Artist Alley. Not everybody has the luxury of getting into writer's block. That is a competition within itself. And you have to be specially selected for that. And that was one of the key things that I learned many moons ago dealing with exhibiting at shows. And it was a nice lesson that Reed Pop is a good lesson that they gave to me because I learned firsthand because they had that come to Jesus meeting with me over the phone that says like, look, it's not like you're not an artist or anything to that magnitude. You have to think about it from this business aspect here. You have 2 titles with multiple issues in each. Don't always think that you can't wear that artist hat. Sometimes you have to put on that publisher's hat and think and sell as a publisher. It might be your way into a lot more shows that way. They were the ones that told me that. And they were right. I don't think I could get into Artist Alley anymore. I don't think so. I don't think so because the grading criteria for Artist Alley is a little bit different than for getting a actual booth. There's a difference. See, I have to have major fans of my artwork before people could be like, yeah, he could come into Artist Alley, and he's kind of like one of the few people that we could count on to be here and be able to sell his wares without any problems. And the guidelines are also different too for Artist Alley as opposed to having it, a 10 by 10. Writer's block, I might be able to do more so than anything else. I might be able to get into the writer's block faster than an Artist Alley. And I believe that I don't know, maybe the competition is just as steep too. And no cherry coke tonight here. That was a Sprite, by the way. But saying all that to say here, just the lack of comic book stores and comic book vendors for physical comic books was the major shock for this year. And I'm up here, it's like, no wonder not a lot of people are walking around with books upon books or boxes, short boxes of books. This is probably one of the reasons why more and more people are coming in with their books to go to CGC than anything else here. Which is going to bring us to our second part of tonight's topic here. And the second part of tonight's topic is the slabbing dilemma. I learned some stuff here. And thanks to Elaine kind of manning the booth here, I was able to talk to PSA a little bit in depth for a couple of things here. Now, I do know that a lot of people who are out there that collect comics and everything, some of them are very into slabbing here. And we know recently that CBCS is closing their doors here. And now CBCS closing their doors opens up this big gambit of what's going to happen next here. Now, other things that people may not be aware of, we're going to cover in this segment here, but I have to make certain that people understand that we have to start from the very beginning to understand where things are at. And then I could tell people what I found out through talking with PSA directly. So I had a good conversation, a good like 20 to 30-minute conversation with PSA while I was at C2E2, dealing with this very topic here. And it was dealing with CBCS, their services, and how they're planning to compete. Because it took me aback about a couple of things that I asked about. And they were up there, was like, oh, yeah, we're thinking about X, Y, and Z, but we're not there yet. So let's start out by starting everything with the very beginning here. So those who really have been paying attention here, we know back on December 25th that Collectors, the parent company of PSA, acquired Beckett, which is the parent company of CBCS. So the press release came out. They were saying that, that Collectors are going to buy Beckett. And the key thing, the reason why I brought up the whole thing about this, the actual press release, because in the press release, they specifically stated that Beckett would still be in operation, that they're not going to take over the day-to-day business of Beckett, which means that CBCS was going to, was still going to be around, as well as PSA. So they didn't want to cut off competition. And I was like, okay, that's a good thing. And then on March 24th, we get this message that's here. It's like, founded in 2014, CBCS was quickly, became a trusted resource for comic book collectors seeking professional grading and authentication. Since CBCS has helped preserve and document countless of comics across the hobby, again, we're looking to increase our focus and investment in the core Beckett brand and our broader grading capabilities. This includes the continuing development of our trading cards and autograph authentications, along to hiring and team expansion across these key areas in the business. These investments are focused on improving turnaround times and enhancing customer experience and strengthening the long-term values we provide to collectors here. As a part of that strategy on Beckett's brand, we have made the challenging decision to shut down CBCS. As of April 17th, new submissions will no longer be accepted. So we still got still got 13 days if you're a big fan of CBCS to get your submissions into them, or else they're in the water. Now, I do have a few books that have been graded by CBCS, and they are pretty good. They are pretty good in everything here. Now, this happened just before C2E2. Now, with that being said, this happened just before. Now, I went and talked to CBCS here about this. And lo and behold, they said, no, we had no bearing on this. Beckett made that decision on their own here. And then what I found out here through looking at other things that was being said about Beckett on the interwebs, there is a good possibility that they was losing too much money. They was losing too much money on grading comics here. Now, the key thing that I also found out by talking to PSA here is that item one, they haven't even hit the 1 year mark in grading comics. So they're the new guys. They're the new guys here in grading comics. Now, are they meeting the de facto standard that is across the board, that is what is equivalent to CGC? We don't know as of yet. The next question that I asked was, like, since CBCS is gone and that technically they're, all of you still up under the collector's banner, is there a good possibility to pick up those graders from CBCS to help you guys out at PSA? And they said, and pretty much the answer that I got is, like, they really don't know as of yet, because technically Beckett is still their own company. Beckett has not folded. Only the CBCS part had. So that makes me go like, oh, so if they're reining in the troops over there at Beckett, it does not necessarily mean that those comic book graders are really losing a job. They just might get reassigned to focus only solely on autographs and cards. Now, here's some of the other interesting stuff that I found out about PSA. For one, because they're less than a year old, they don't have an artist program like CGC does, because that was my whole goal of stopping there. Because I'm up here, it's like, well, I know that CGC has, the whole artist account and everything. I could send, my sketch covers and everything to that magnitude. And by talking to them, I found out not only did they not have a artist account and they could validate artist sketches and stuff to that magnitude, they can't even grade sketch covers. That is outside of their realm as of right now. So you can't really submit sketch covers to them to have them to get graded. Yes, they may have the better cases, but they don't have just the bare basics as of yet. And that caught me off guard, because it's like, you guys are about to move into the number 2 spot when it comes to grading comics here. Because I don't see PGX stepping up. I don't see EGS stepping up. I don't see any other company stepping up. It means that the only people that are really there on the slabbing aspect, where people are looking at it on the secondary market to see that their books are the value of what is truly out there, is CGC and PSA. Now, since I found out that PSA is really like that newborn baby, it's going to be kind of like one of those things. Do you make that decision to watch it grow up and be a part of that grassroots, to kind of start sending books to them and hope that the values grow to the point to be competitive to CGC? Do you play the wait and see game? At this point, I'm at the wait and see, because without them having an artist account there for me, I'm awfully hard pressed to send any book to them for grading. If they had an artist account already established there, I could start with my own books, which to me is not as costly as sending like a Mr. Miracle #1 or X-Men 1 to them. That level of trust has not been there as of yet. But I'm not saying that PSA is a bad company. I was just more through the moon that they shared this information with me at the show, because I was like, you guys are really trying to develop my trust in you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty. And that's the clear thing that I could honestly tell other people. It's like, they were straight up for it. It's like, nope. What happened with CBCS is still Beckett. Beckett is still operating as normal. Collectors has no bearing on that. When they told me that they're still less than a year old, they can't grade sketch covers, they don't have the artist capabilities here. They do have the signature authentication portion of it. They still, can do any other books here. But they're saying, for us being 1 year into grading comics, we're trying to do very fine. And you have to be mindful. CGC's booth, to be quite honest, is like 40 by 40. Or it's like either 40 by 40 or 30 by like 60, because it's like a big triangle where they have all their setups. You could register your books to be sent in and all this other stuff right there on site. PSA barely had a 20 by 20, and they had maybe 6 or 7 people there. They were still doing intakes of books. They were doing intakes of books, but they was more there trying to get people on their side, just like how CBCS was usually be on the other side of the showroom floor with their submission, but they was a lot smaller. They had a lot of people going to them, but they were still a lot smaller. But I was happy that PSA was there, because they were trying to establish trust. And to give you an idea how close they were literally maybe 3 or 4 hours away from CGC. I could walk from their booth right over to CGC at any given time. It was just that close to one another. But the one thing that made me kind of go yeah, they're a brand new company, we have to give them time, is I was able to walk in and talk to them with nobody interfering. There was literally nobody going there giving them books giving them books one right after another. So they was there, pretty much, say, here, check us out. Here's the specs of what we do. This is what we're trying to do. And if you're ready to go ahead and submit a book, we could take the submission here and now, I should say. But with that being said, now I have to get to the thing that kind of sort of took me aback. And I hate the fact that the interwebs are trying to be undefeated again. Now, we got this statement from a higher up at CGC here. And pretty much they took their shot about CBCS stopping their grading here. And what they did is that they highlighted the fact that, you know, they have built trust and all this other stuff, and then how long they have been in place, and throughout all the different scandals and everything, that they're not going anywhere. And a lot of people felt that this was in bad taste. Do I personally feel that this is in bad taste? Business wise, no. Personally, I'm up here. It's like, you know what? Sometimes silence speaks more than putting out a statement. If anything, if you want to put out a statement about another company folding, you need to put it in a positive aspect to say that we appreciated the competition. It's like, because of CBCS, we had to get better, and we do appreciate the fact that you gave us a good run for our money, and that you're going to miss them. Not the standpoint that they took here, because the way that they took it is that all the people that's in that made comments here are people who had problems with CGC in the past, and was talking about all the different problems and stuff that they had. And I mean, yeah, the way that they stated it was in bad taste to those customers who felt that they got slighted. If I was in their shoes, I would have, if I was in their shoes, if I was the CEO, I would have been more celebratory to say, we will miss you. Because without competition, there is no innovation. And let me get to this comment here. Yeah, I'm disappointed in them not having RS account, but at least they were above board, and I can respect that. Yep. And that would really shock me, because before I was like, there's no way in the world I'm going with it, going to PSA to get anything graded through them. After talking to them, it's like, you know what? Maybe I need to give them a couple more years before I be like, maybe it's time. The only reason why I don't have an RS account through CBCS is mainly because they never replied back to me when I asked about it. I filled out the paperwork and everything, and they never came back to me. And I think that's also part of the problem. It's like, maybe that branch of the comic book grading side just got too big for them here. But getting back to what the CEO said here, it should have been a celebration of grading. Because without CBCS, they wouldn't have looked into trying to get better slabs. They would have worked on getting faster turnaround times. With all the so-called scandals and stuff that had happened, they wouldn't have been so swift to get those things corrected. Because why? You had a direct competitor that people could walk immediately right over to and get their books taken care of here. This statement does sound like some from a CEO that was very disgruntled and frustrated, as opposed to saying, hey, it's like, without you guys, we wouldn't have gotten better. Yeah, we're probably going to be, they're going to be there for the long haul, but at the same time, you have to be grateful that a CBCS came about to give you a good run for your money. Because when you truly think about it, CBCS had not been out there for that long of a time. When I say that long of a time, I believe, let me go back here to what they were saying. I don't think they barely reached 12 years. So little over a decade, 12 years. We got PGX that has been out there just as long. PGX is not competition for CGC. EGS is not competition for CGC. However, Beckett was. What, how it came across to us collectors, it did kind of leave a sour taste in our mouth. This CEO statement. It did. I'm not going to lie. It did. I understand why he said it the way that he said it, but it does come out more of a disgruntled. He's like, see, we crushed our competition and this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, but that's not the way that you celebrate something like that. You sound like an ungrateful winner in that aspect, instead of a gracious one. A gracious one would thank CBCS for pushing them to the point of where they're at right now. Now the question becomes this: can PSA push you in the same light? Now you got another fledgling grading and authentication company coming up that pretty much has, or I should say have, but can call Beckett for advice. Ask them about things that help them make them a competitive force. So it's one of those things that, for me, it's a wait and see. I'm not going to stop using CGC, especially after a statement like this. It's not going to stop me from using them. Yeah, there's problems. Every company has problems. Everything is not going to be hunky dory, and everything is going to be great in the greater scheme of things here. But how they did what they did is what. Oh my goodness, there he is. There he is. There's Raymond Leonard. What's going on with you, bro? What's going on with you? Hopefully you caught the very beginning of this actual of tonight's topic here. I talked about C2E2 as far as the lack of actual brick and mortar stores there, and the fact that you couldn't pick up recent comics here because most of the vendors brought only Grail books and the more higher price stuff to try to pad out making their booths and stuff back. Right now we're on the second part of it about the slabbing dilemma, what's going on between PSA, CBCS, and CGC. And Ray would say, I'm good and just tuned in. Oh, okay. So, you might want to go back about like 20, 30 minutes here, because it's like I talked about that at the very beginning of tonight's topic here. But I was just finishing up covering the whole CBCS going to the wayside and going bye-bye. Beckett is not going away. The bigger company is not going away, but they're not doing comic book slabbing anymore. Beckett is not doing comic book slabbing anymore. PSA had nothing to do with it, even though collectors bought Beckett. So the bigger umbrella company had nothing to do with CBCS going away. The fact that PSA, which is up under collectors, which is the bigger umbrella company, has only been doing grading for less than a year. They haven't even hit their 1 year mark as of yet. They don't have an artist account programs anymore. They cannot do grading of sketch covers at this point. They can do signatures and they could do any regular books here, but anything on the artist related tip or on the sketch cover type tips where you have an artist drawing something unique on the cover, they cannot grade those as of yet. And the response from CGC, had just turned a lot of people's stomachs. It's just weird. It's getting to be like the wild wild west out there when it comes to slabbing now. And the thing about it is that what I was telling the majority of my watchers here is that we're kind of in a wait and see with PSA. They're the newborn baby of grading as of right now. We have to see if they could push CGCs to the next limit here. And when I say push them to the next limit, it's like the people who control the bigger market share are only as great as their competition. So if we go through another lull where CGC really doesn't have competition, we're probably going to see more and more people complaining about the lack of service and all this other stuff here. But if PSA gets to the same point that CBCS was to CGC, we're going to see a lot more innovations, especially when it comes to things like the actual slab casings and everything. Maybe it's the consistency with grading. We just don't know as of yet. And he's saying, yeah, wow, I really heard that CGC is a mess. It's really not a mess per se when you are the de facto standard. And when I say the de facto standard, we're talking about not necessarily as far as how they grade the casing that they encase your books and stuff to that magnitude in. It's more along the lines that a 9.8 up under their grading system commands the most money. No other grading company can guarantee you the biggest bang for your bottom dollar for a 9.8, unlike CGC. PGX 9.8 is not even a 9.8 on the CGC scale. It is a lot less. The fact that CBCS is going away, a 9.8 in CBCS, I can't say 9 times out of 10. I would say 8 times out of 10 is a 9.8 at CGC and could command the same amount of money. That competition is now going bye-bye as of April 17th. April 17th is the last day that CBCS is accepting submissions, and they're closing their doors for comic book grading. Beckett, the overall company itself, is not giving up grading itself. They're still doing trading cards, sports cards, signature, authentication, and all the other stuff, but they're just not doing comic books anymore. Which means that the only other possible competitor for CGC would be PSA, who has only been in business for less than a year. Yeah, it's getting wild west territory now. It's like I hope that PSA it would be good competition. People have already proven that the encasement slabs that they use at PSA is a lot sturdier than what they use at CGC. The only things that we don't know as of yet is the comparableness of the grading itself. Is a 9.8 at PSA the same as a 9.8 at CGC? And on the secondary market, does that 9.8 command the same amount of money as a CGC graded book? We don't know that as of yet. Why? Because of the simple fact that PSA is still a fledgling company. And when I say fledgling, it's like they haven't been out there that long here. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. That's why the reason I'm saying that it's really more or less a wait and see in this aspect here. I'm keeping my fingers crossed here. And what makes me hopeful was the conversation that I had with them at C2E2. They said, yes, we are going to at least attempt to get artist accounts soon. Not within the next couple of months, because like I said, they're less than a year into grading comics. but they see where they need to go. They said it might be more than a year or two before they start opening up the doors for artist accounts here. It might be another year or two before they do sketch covers and start grading the one-of-one sketch covers from artists. When that happens, I believe that's when the ball really gets rolling, and we really will have the actual numbers to compare to see if a 9.8, a 9.9, and a 10 at PSA commands the same amount of money as a 9.8, a 9.9, or a 10 at CGC on the secondary market. And to be quite honest here, with CBCS leaving the way that they're doing, the way that they are as of right now, it opens up that door for PSA, but at the same time, is it really one of those things that they could play catch up and catch CGC to be actual competition here? So Raymond is saying hi and Elaine is saying hi back, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed on this one. PSA was one of the few companies that really impressed me by being straightforward and honest. They could have, lied through their teeth, but they didn't. They came out as like, no, we're less than a year old. We know where we need to be, but yet growing pains. We have to grow into it. And for them to come out to say that they can't do sketch covers nor have artist accounts as of yet spoke volumes about the integrity of that company. Not to say that CGC doesn't have integrity. Don't twist my words here. I'm not saying that at all. However, after seeing that post and all the people complaining about all the different problems at CGC, I get why the CEO statement have twisted and made people a little bit ill. But also at the same time, looking at it from the business aspect here, a statement needed to be made. I would have not made a statement like that. It's like, dude, there's so much going on in comics, it's hard to keep up. Exactly. I wouldn't have made a statement like that here. I probably would have celebrated the fact that we would thank CBCS for the 12 plus years of competition. Because if CBCS did not push CGC, a lot of stuff that people were complaining about in this chat would have been far worse. Far worse. However, not to say that the CEO was not wrong about them being around for a lot longer. It's more along the lines of like, you just don't want to do anything in bad taste. But I also want to tell the people in the chat, and not in the chat, but in that in the comments for that post. Sometimes, and this is the favorite thing that I know that you're a follower of. Sometimes you just got to vote with your money. If you're just that fed up with CGC, if you're really that fed up, take your money elsewhere. If CBCS was really their true competition, why haven't you taken your money over there? And you want to know why you haven't taken your money over there? Because I'm pointing my finger at you, those people that are in the chat complaining. You got caught up in your own greed with the secondary market. You got caught up with, well, my 9.8 CBCS slab is not getting that full $200 like that CGC 9.8 is. You want to know why? It's because you're not really hyping up the fact that 9.8 is equivalent across the board here. It's weird because I have seen people crack out 9.8s at CBCS and send it over to CGC. It's a 9.8. And I also seen it vice versa. But you guys got greedy. I want that extra $50 for that Web of Spider-Man #1. I want that extra $2,000 for that Golden Age Grail that the CGC slab gets over that CBCS. But yet, you're still not the ones validating that the grading over there at CBCS is equivalent. People keep forgetting that the secondary market, the supply and demand, is made by you, the buyer. If you're looking for slab books and you're treating one company more prominently than all the others, that's on you. This is the reason why I say I'm in that wait and see, because there have been PSA slabs that have been in heritage auctions as of right now. They have not seen the same types of numbers on the older Grail books on heritage auctions as of yet. They're close to those numbers. I have not seen anybody truly complain about a 9.8 not being equivalent at PSA that is the same as CGC. I have not seen that as of yet. However, people are quick to say, because it's in a PSA slab, that is not generating the same type of numbers on the secondary market. And that's on you. That's on you, the buyer. If there is truly no difference between the two, why aren't you going after that PSA slab? Just saying. I could say the exact same thing with the CBCS. Why didn't you go after it? Because deep down, you saw more value because of greed on the secondary market. Not to say that CGC is the better company. You saw the final results and you valued that over the possibility of just having your favorite book. Just saying. If you keep everything on an even playing field, you get your true answer. When you see across the board, when you have a 9.8 CBCS slab and a CGC slab of the same book, and you do not see equivalent money going across the way here, that them going for similar pricing, that's not on anybody but the buyers. If the grading is exactly the same, then why are you trusting one company more so than another? Just saying. That's just the true reason why I said for me, PSA is a wait and see. Not to say that PSA did not deserve the right to get my business. I'm waiting to see if that equivalency can be established. If that equivalency can be established, I would send business to both. You're going to have, CGC is the de facto standard, but CGC needs competition. It cannot be a monopoly. And technically, it's not a monopoly because there's other grading companies out there, but those grading companies are not true competition. They have less market share as of right now. PSA, I don't know what their market share is at this point in time. I know it's greater than 10% because of the simple fact that PGX and some of the other ones are not even at 10% of the market share. So it is what it is. But saying all that to say, you know, it is the Wild West when it comes to slabbing now. And I begin to understand why a lot of content creators, especially on the comic book side, are trying to rally the troops to go back to raw books. And me as an individual, and I have stated this several times on the show, I'm more of a preservationist. I don't believe in slabbing every book unless you're truly preserving the book. And when I say preserving the book, I mean the actual print totals or the copy counts are really that low. Then your best option is to get it encapsulated. I don't have a problem with people using mylights and bags and boards and stuff to that magnitude to keep up their books. That's the proper way to do it here. But with the advent of encapsulation and actual grading, those should be reserved for those books that need to be preserved. Your Uncanny X-Men #1 for 1963. That's a yes. I would say go ahead and get that slab. Absolute Batman #1 that just came out a few months ago. That's a no, dog. That's a no. Too early. We don't know the staying power. We don't know how long the series is going to last. Now, maybe 20, 30 years down the line, I would say yes. That would be something that I might want to get it preserved here. See, and you know, there's no wrong answer about that. There's no wrong answer about being a slabber or a person that loves slabs. I only feel that slabs is only needed to preserve. Their preservation. Well, I can't really say it's a true preservation tool, but encapsulation does protect the book to a certain degree more so than mylights. And that's the way that I look at it. You know, I'm not looking at every book to get graded. But I know one thing is like books that I do get from like the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, eventually they're going to get encapsulated. You can only do so much, and you can only set up a certain schedule to replace and rebag and reboard those type of comics so often. I'm not going to be one of those people. I can't afford my right now with my schedule here to be one of those people to be like every year or every other year going and rebagging every last comic that I got. It doesn't make any sense to me. But also at the same time, I'm not one of those ones to be like, oh, I got Absolute Wonder Woman #1 that just came out 2 weeks ago. Now I gotta go and send it to CGC before I could capitalize off of maybe tripling my money if I ever decide to sell it. I'm not one of those people either. And you know, the secondary market really makes things convoluted. The idea of flipping newer books and flipping, you know, what is considered FOMO books, fear of missing out books, has ruined a lot of things here. And I believe it also took things such as shoot, give me a second here. It took things such as speculating way overboard. It did. It has. Because speculation used to be about Do you see this title having staying power? Do you see people writing good stories about it or writing great characters where people will fall in love with it? Now, books nowadays is more about, can this book get, to get picked up on an option to be made into something else? And what's the likelihood that this book is going to be made into something else? And then on top of that, if it gets made into something else, does that bring newer readers to your title? That last part rarely happens. But because of the speculation of all of that, people get greedy and look at the value of the book at the height of its popularity and don't think about the crash that comes down once that title's day in the sun goes away. It's always about staying power. And when I say about staying power, I talk about longevity, ongoing series, and everything to that magnitude. When we're at the point now where we're seeing more and more limited series, more and more books going, 12 issues before it gets collected and sent into a graphic novel to try to recoup the money from single issues, it just doesn't work very well on the secondary market. It doesn't work very well for the speculation of it. People are even still to this day trying to speculate on television and movies, where I have said several times over, and people have not proven me wrong on this. It is easy to have a comic book reader to go and watch a comic book movie or a comic book TV series. It is not easy for a TV watcher or a moviegoer to watch a comic book movie and then come back to try to read a comic. The mediums are too different. What they are used to consuming is what they want to consume. They want to consume a movie. They want to consume a television show. 9 times out of 10, they don't want to read the source material. 9 times out of 10, that happens. Now, for those rare few that want to read the source material, it is available for them to do so. The second problem with this here is that when they want to do it, brick and mortar stores do not have anything that is recognizable to them to get them immediately in. There's not a one-to-one correlation to movies and TV series that directly links back to the comic book series itself, where that new person who only knows the television series or movie can walk right into a comic book store, pick up a comic book and be like, now I understand why this, that, and the other. Because they see one-to-one correlation. That has never been established. Not at all. But yet, all these speculators want to still say, like, oh, when this television series come out, everybody's going to be flocking to this. And I was like, yeah, there might be a little bit of a bump, but you're not going to get many moviegoers or TV watchers coming over to read the comics like you think. You might get a handful, but you're not getting the thousands and thousands like people are hoping for and keeping their fingers crossed for. The mediums are too different. Been saying that for the longest. The mediums are too different. For a comic book IP to last nowadays, it has to be convertible to one of those other mediums. I'm not going to argue against that. But once it gets to that other medium, there's no guarantee that the people who consume movies are going to come back to read comic books. There's no guarantee that somebody who likes television shows or watch TV are going to come back and read comics. But you pretty much guaranteed that comic book reader who picked it up and loved it from day one, they're going to go and watch that movie. They're going to go and watch that TV series. They're going to break it. They're going to try to break it down and say, oh, this was wrong about that and that was wrong about this in the movie. That's guaranteed. But it doesn't always work the other way around. It's not a two-way street. The other fans, the movie fans, the TV fans do not always cross back over. And that's what a lot of these speculators have to understand. It doesn't work both ways like you think here. It can, but it doesn't. The mediums are too different. Heck, I got X-Men novels written by Chris Claremont. And those who love those novels don't even come back over to read X-Men comic books. The mediums are too different. Those who read novels are going to stick to novels. They're not going to go and come back to comic books or graphic novels 9 times out of 10. And to me, that's an easier sell than those who watch movies or television. So if that's happening just within that genre of media, why are you having so much hope for a television option or a movie option on a comic book series? It's kind of speculating on the wrong thing. Now, there are a few examples. Here. I mean, I've seen an uptick with all this stuff with Invincible, but Invincible has been out for several years, and now the TV series and stuff are out here. The Boys is another example where there's a big uptick now because of the TV series and everything. But that speculation is after the fact that these TV series have been out for a while. They've been going through multiple seasons. And now people are finding out that there might be a one-to-one correlation between the TV series and the comic books. Not so much with Walking Dead. Walking Dead was out way longer than the TV series came out on TNT, I believe, had the Walking Dead series. And now they're doing like Walking Dead Deluxe, where they're re-releasing everything now more so in color and kind of like adding those things that they did in television. And I think the Walking Dead series is no longer on TV, so it's kind of like going in like this up and down type aspect. But even in the TV series heyday, the Walking Dead TV series did not have that much of an impact on the prices of the issues that were still coming out. You got to be careful with the speculation here. Speculation should be limited to the staying power of the comic book series as is. You shouldn't have to worry about movies. You have to worry about TVs, cartoons, and all this other stuff. It should be about the staying power and the popularity of the comic book on its own merits. But that's enough ranting for me here. We're almost at an hour 30, almost at an hour 40 minutes here. So that means that my East Coast people who are watching, I'm about to give you 20 minutes back of your Saturday here. That way you could go and enjoy your Saturday, just like the rest of us here in the Midwest and on the West Coast here. We'll have another episode of Comic Book Spectrum this upcoming Thursday. Cliff should be back as well. That is a good thing here. Hopefully everything that I talked to you guys about, the recap of 2026 C2E2 makes sense here. I hope that I add a very good perspective on the whole slabbing drama that's going on right now. I hope that I give you, a good point of view on that. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but when you look at it from the bigger picture here, and I know how sometimes people think. People feel that, well, collectors sabotage CBCS. It's like, no. There was a above board about that. Like I said, I went back to the original press release. It showed you in the original press release that Beckett still has control over CBCS. I went to their press release, Beckett's press release, about the real reason why CBCS is going away. I even talked about the post, the if I can say, the not so well received post by CGC dealing with the scenario here. And I gave you all points of view on how to really take it here. But it's still up to you to form your own opinion. Don't take my opinion for it. I want you to form your own. You could look at those posts again. You could rewind it back. You could read it for yourself. Put it on slow-mo. You can read everything for yourself here. I had all the links and stuff in each one of those screens. So if you want to do it, but the major thing here is that I want you to form your own opinion. Don't always follow the opinion of the so-called influencers. Make up your own mind. And I told you, my opinion as of right now is a wait and see with PSA. We need to know if PSA can be a good competition for CGC. If so, then both CGC and PSA are going to have some great service to offer. If PSA is not, then you might go and see a little bit of regression with CGC. That I can pretty much guarantee. Why? Because the greater your competition, the more innovation happens. But that's if you are that's if you're into slabbing. If you're not into slabbing, don't worry about it. Just maintain your raws to the best of your ability. And Lane say, I'll catch you on Thursday. I'll be reviewing a book I found on Kindle. Cool. Like it, number 1. Excellent. So that was a preview of what's to come on this upcoming Thursday. So on that note, live life, grow, and be well. And we're about to be out of here. Have a great rest of your Saturday. And I'll catch you here next Saturday for another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. I'm your host, Joe D. McPhee, and we are out. Bye.